All right, here we are. Good morning, Josh.
Yeah, good
thanks,
morning.
thanks for making time. So here, this is our first podcast in a while, in a minute, and it's on the topic of discipling, and it's involving the book written by Mark Dever. It's a book that in the church that's been passed around. It's the small blue book that a lot of people have their hands on, but we're going to take the next few weeks and go through the different chapters. And as I know personally, I've been encouraged, and I know Josh and many others have been encouraged. We just want to take our time and slowly go through this book for the edification of the church, and it's about discipling. And so maybe as we're talking about this, it's really good just to even as we're talking, having and just for everyone knows too, this is unscripted. So like we didn't write out exactly what we're gonna say, but I think it just illustrates how this is just coming out of our pores, if you will, that we're just so eager to talk about this topic here of discipleship, of discipling, but just getting into it right away. Josh, discipling. Why discipling? Why do we feel like we need to talk about it right now in the life of the church?
Yeah, well, I am so thankful for this opportunity and really thankful to you, Francis, for your passion to disciple and the way I've seen that in your life and your passion to help the church help us become disciple makers. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk about it. For one thing, doing something like this, a podcast, is a little difficult. We are putting ourselves out there in a sense to just reflect on what the Lord's taught us and what we're learning from this book. And as we do that, so it's a little scary to do that, but as we do that, what happens is I'm learning and you're learning and we're encouraging one another, and God's doing all kinds of things in our life, and hopefully will be an encouragement to others. And so to me, that's kind of one example of why we love to talk about discipleship, because as we seek to obey God in this command to go and make disciples, Jesus said it over and over and over again, gave it to us as a mission. As we move towards that, we have to exercise faith. We have to preach the gospel to ourselves, because we got all kinds of things that get in our way of obeying that command. And so we've got to trust God, like, Lord, help me do something that's scary. And as we take that step to do something that's maybe a little difficult or a little unusual, get involved in people's lives, God does all kinds of stuff in our life as disciplers. Like, we start praying, we start having to study the Bible, we start working through the fact that we don't love people enough and we need to love them more, or we have to, our pride gets poked because they don't respond the way maybe we want them to respond. And so as we're obeying, as we're exercising faith to obey to this command to disciple, the Lord is transforming us, and he is using us in a lot of often in surprising ways. We think, man, we've got 5 loaves and 2 fishes, less than that. We've got barely anything to offer. And yet Jesus so often takes those 5 loaves and 2 fishes and does things that we wouldn't expect in the lives of others so that they can know Christ and become more like him. And so this is at least one of the reasons why we're always talking about discipleship here.
Yeah, no, and there's so much to say, and that's why we have this book, to dive deep into all these things. But yeah, I like the way that you described it. When we talk about discipleship, it really does encompass a lot of the things that we're called to do in the Christian life. It's more than just about ourselves enjoying and loving God. But it's about helping others to enjoy and love God. And we think about, we've talked about this before, how we think about who God is, one God, 3 persons, and how much they, are self-existent. They are independent. They did not need anyone. Nothing adds to them. They're the only ones. God is the only one who is um, yeah, they don't need anything from anyone. They are. God is, and how even just in and of themselves there was sufficiency, and so but it was out of love that God sent Jesus into the world so that we can enjoy that love, that we can participate in that love. And I think about how that's cool, and how then we get to be a part of that, and like how we can extend that love, to others, and that's what discipling is about. Essentially. So in that way, we're imitating God. We're doing our best to be like Him, to be His image bearers, right? So. And that's just there's so much to say.
That's for sure.
And what to do and how to say that.
Maybe another two reasons why I like to talk about discipleship so much. One is reading the Gospel of Luke and seeing that the Jesus is eating who He's eating with and who He's going after. He came to seek and save the lost, and this is who we're following. And then looking at the religious elite of His day and seeing just their lack of concern for needy people. And so it's just such a stark contrast there, and that is scary to me. Like, I don't want to be that. I see it's possible to be so religious, reading your Bible, know so many things, and yet be so far from the heart of God. And then I see Jesus revealing to me what the heart of God looks like, and it's going after the lost sheep. And so that's part of why I'm constantly talking about discipleship, is a way of preaching to myself, like, man, God's been so gracious to me. Don't be that Pharisee. Be like Jesus. It's who you follow. Because I know my own temptation would be to be selfish and focused on myself. And then maybe the other reason that comes to mind real quickly is just growing up in my dad's home, who was a biblical counselor. He had just a different angle. Maybe he was a pastor, preacher, but he was a biblical counselor. And just seeing that, like, a lot of the people coming to him for counseling were Christians coming from pretty good churches, and realizing that, like, people, like, we all need a lot of help. They get a lot of help from the preaching of God's word, but there's just a lot of stuff that we need to talk to somebody about, and the fact that they had to come to this counselor who wasn't even part of their church to get that, and just dreaming like so many of these problems could have been addressed earlier before they got this complicated if they had like godly disciplers. It's just that they didn't have that. It got so far into it, became such a mess that they were like, I need to find somebody. So that's part of why I just long to see. I know that's still going to happen because we all need Jesus. So but like, and life is just so complicated. But to think of a local church where it's happening earlier because people have these relationships.
Yeah. Well, so Dever in this book right away, he makes a very provocative statement. He says, there are no Christians who are not disciples. So I don't know, what was your reaction to that? How would you say it louder than that? Because that's a pretty bold statement, right? Because even in your preliminary comment, you're talking about Christians that were, been in the church for a while, but it sounds like there was some gap in their being discipled or pursuing discipleship. So what would you say to that statement, or what was your reaction to that statement?
Yeah, I would say amen. I think John MacArthur used to talk about a disciple is a Christian is a disciple. They're not really different words. To be a Christian is to be a follower of Christ, a learner of Christ. And so you're not a Christian if you're not a disciple, for sure. I was challenged even a little bit earlier in the book as he talks about the fact that a lot of us, we want to kind of live life without much input from others. And we kind of want to be able to do our own thing. And then, like, we get a little bit of advice every once in a while, but we pretty much are capable of just being on our own. And I think sometimes we almost think of that as something to admire in people. Like, that guy, he doesn't need help. He just knows what to do all the time. And he's just kind of
It's like a super Christian. Or a
Yeah,
mature Christian.
right. Yeah, and in fact, Proverbs says that's not wise. That's really foolish. I was just thinking about how the Proverbs says, "Do you see a man who's wise in his own eyes?
Mm.
There's more hope for a fool than for him." And like Proverbs doesn't have much hope for a fool. So if you're worse than a fool, you're like at a really bad spot. And a person who's like so sure of himself that he doesn't think he needs help from others is really worse than a fool. And then just recognizing that's tempting though. Like it's really tempting to not want to have these kind of relationships where people can mess with you at like a core level. Like a superficial level, cool. But like once you start telling me, no, Josh, you need to take more initiative, or no, just that way is not the best way. Like you are, you're fearing man, or whatever it is you're going to tell me. Then I'm and then I actually, like now I have to change a little bit.
Yeah. You feel pretty good about yourself.
Yeah.
The way you are, right?
Yeah. And you might notice that like there's some things that are wrong, but I like doing it wrong sometimes.
I do like doing it my way.
In a weird, like in a weird way. I like, because I'm a sinner. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that the I life, the I life is very tempting, and it's supported by our culture. Like it's an American.
Yeah.
It's not like seen as really unusual in America.
No, totally, and that's why I appreciated. There were what I like about Deborah. He's very attuned to the culture and aware of how we are, even as like Western or American, and there was a couple references to a couple poems by Robert Frost, and then there's this one Invictus, and I think we've all heard it where it elevates this idea of being independent, saying I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, right? So when we hear that, we want to just ball up our fist and shout like yes, like amen to that. But actually, that's that's a lie. Like that's a very clear deception, a way that it seems like Satan himself is working in our culture to undo these things that we have learned or learning about the gospel. So what would you say to that? Like or just speak to that more about like what our culture is like and how we need to challenge that way of thinking.
Well, I maybe less what our culture is like, just my own temptation in terms of thinking that being pretty confident that I know best, and hopefully as we mature we do know some things. We are growing and learning, but one of the things that we should be growing and learning is just how much help we need from others. And I think that's part of why he starts the book with this idea of like to be a Christian is to be a disciple, because it's really important for us to remember, like, when we signed up to be Christian, like when we became Christians, we were saying we need to, like, our whole way of life was wrong. Like we need to learn a new way of life from Jesus. Like we're saying to be a Christian is to say, I need to be taught. I need to be taught not just some more information. I need to be taught a whole new way of life. And if I believe, man, that I need to learn and grow so that I can follow Christ, then I'm going to be the kind of person who is looking for help from others and not keeping people at a distance. But I think we have to just really pray, because it's like you're saying, it's so embedded in our culture to be our own person that nobody can tell me what to do, that way of life can become normal in a church too. Like we sort of come, we hear things, but we keep people at a little bit of a distance, like and really almost it's kind of rude if you start, you can tell me things generally, but if you start poking around like with like, hey Josh, like let the Lord, I think this is the word, says it in the word, help me see a different way of thinking about it. No, I agree, that's the way the Bible says it. So we need to obey. And then it's like, oh, once you take that step, it's like, almost for a lot of us, it's like, I think that's a little too much, but is it really?
Yeah.
You know, like, is it...
Yeah, it's funny because it is in the gospel. I mean, we would agree that, we know that we're sinners, we're unable to save ourselves, we're dead in trespass. And so that right there blows up this idea that, we're the captain of our souls, or that, we should take the road less traveled, because that road leads to destruction. We follow it. And so, but, in our culture and in our own hearts, we celebrate it because it seems like it's right. And
Yes.
it seems good. And that's where we do need to be reminded that, that is the wrong path, that it will lead us down to destruction, and to really invite and others and humble ourselves to receive shepherding and counsel and really love, like from other people.
Yeah. Even if we go back to the Garden of Eden, it's like, here's man in a perfect environment, like experiencing the goodness of God. Satan comes in, and basically temptation is, be your own God. Like, God doesn't know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. And he fell for it. And so when I see that, like, man, this perfect guy in this perfect place falls for this temptation, like, I can do it on my own, I know better than God, then I'm scared of that. And I'm like, Lord, please help me not go that direction with my life. And one means that he's given me to keep me from going that direction are relationships with other people who are godly and who know the word, and who can sort of help me help protect me from walking away after my own foolishness.
Yeah. And so I know we're going to talk about like what discipleship is and how to do it, but just one last thing just about like the air we breathe in our culture right now, because there was a reference to, there's a statistic about how like in this time in the world, there are more people that live in isolation and live by themselves, or just live in that environment. And so, I don't know, just something to think about as we think about how it's a departure from how life used to be, where it was more communal, where it was more normal to be interacting with others, to have people in our lives. But now, these days, where we have technology that's supposed to be connecting us, but we're actually physically more isolated. And so it sounds like we're more at a handicap, like to pursue this type of this counterculture in the Bible that's being described. So I don't know if what your thoughts were on that when you saw that statistic about, I think it was 60% of people like living by themselves or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it's only going further and further that direction. Even a lot of people are cutting off parents and family members, so they're getting more and more isolated. And even those who do have family are often, pretty isolated in that they're like in their families on their phones.
Right. Yeah.
So
right.
they're not even always interacting much that way. And I think that it's tempting to just, because the YouTube's safe, like those guys giving counsel and direction, you just click on the next link when you don't like what they're saying. It's and they don't know you personally, and it's a little more entertaining sometimes than real life. But it's sad, and I think we need to pray, like this might be a way that we're poor, like we're in our culture, we're financially rich, but maybe a little poor in relationally, and just even, the fact that, like, how many people know the way you actually parent? They see you at church, for 10 minutes or something like that. But, like, how many people know what you do when your child won't listen, when you're, trying to have dinner and they're... how many people know that? I think it's possible for a person to have hardly anybody that knows that. Because we just aren't even able to be in each other's homes very much anymore. So I think we're trying to pray that God would help us in this culture the way it exists to figure out how to have actual relationships with people who can give us, encouragement and show us a different way, but also like helpful, pushback where we need pushback.
Yeah, I think, and we're gonna talk about it eventually. I know, but like why that there's such an emphasis on the church, right? So where we disciple, being in the church, because certainly we can be, we have our lives outside the church and our workplaces and schools and things like that. But where you describe how where people can see us day in, day out, and can really know us in every aspect of our lives, where the church would be the place for discipleship to occur. So yeah, well, there's more to say about even being a part of a local church, being a member of a church, and things like that. So you can see how there's many things to say.
Yeah,
on this
for
topic
sure.
here.
But maybe just to encourage, like, relationships like that, they are amazing, but they are also challenging, like, because people are different.
Yeah.
And so that's also, like, hopeful. Like, I can even think about our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm the kind of guy that sometimes I don't want to necessarily talk for a long time about something, and then you're better at, hey, we're going to talk about this. We're going to get down to the end of it.
Yeah.
And like the Lord has used that in my life over the past couple of years to realize, okay, some of that might be okay, like temperament in terms of me, like some of it just might be away, and some of it might be like selfishness.
Yeah.
Some of it might be like, just not wanting things to feel complicated, and actually needs to be changed because of loving people. So like that's sometimes been like in a good way, hard to be different.
Sure. No. Yeah. Wow, church, and whoever's listening, this is gold, right? So just, I mean, I know, and we're just, Josh and I are having a conversation, but just, I think he's sharing a little bit, just insight into his own heart, and to even my heart, how, we learn from each other, and this is, you're just taking something just in our own individual personal relationship, and so, we're just as an example of how we can really encourage and spur one another on and help each other, grow as people, and just be. And if you think about it, just in big language, being refined and sanctification and all those things. But I mean, this is how it works, and through relationships. So
and the hope is like, because some of that stuff, the way we are, goes so deep. Like we've been doing it like that kind of way since we were 2.
Yeah.
And so it is. And it's not comfortable to do something a little different, but man, it's hopeful.
Yeah.
Like, because we can be more like Jesus.
Right. And that's something I've, and just getting, and we're going to get into the meat of this here, but just where I think over the last couple of years, I've learned a lot from you, Josh, just how, I've learned that there are things that seem normal to me or ordinary, but that's just how it is for me growing up in the U.S. in Orange County, in an Asian family and things like that. But seeing how what's normal for me isn't normal. It may not be normal, and how it just celebrates the diversity that we have in the local church, how God brings different people from different walks of life, different upbringings, so that, through the Word and through the help of the Spirit, we're able to learn what is actually true and maybe not normal, and maybe subvert this idea of what is normal, so that we can be together, pursuing the truth and what's really pleasing to the Lord.
Right.
So, and that takes dying to ourselves and humbling ourselves, but that's what is made possible through discipling. So just even getting back to the book here, what is discipling, Josh? How is it defined? How would you define it here?
Yeah, I liked his definition. He says, what is it? It's helping people follow Jesus. He says the lives of Jesus' followers should be dedicated to helping other people follow Jesus. I think there was another book we read called The Vine Project a couple years ago by these guys in Australia, and they were saying discipleship's the great goal of helping people learn the gospel, be saved, and take steps towards spiritual maturity in every area of their lives. So they even have a little diagram with a group of people around Jesus, like redeemed and glorified on the far right, and then they have like us here. We're not there yet. We're not in heaven glorified. And so they kind of say discipleship is helping the person in front of you take a step to the right, like to get closer to that great vision that God has of glorified saints. And so discipleship is getting involved in somebody's life, loving them, and helping them know Jesus and how to obey him.
Yeah. So, yeah, and with that definition, there's a lot of really good words we could unpack, but there's a lot of space as well. So it may not look exactly the same for every relationship, but the idea of deliberately doing spiritual good so that others can be more like Christ. I mean, there's a lot there, and even the idea. I mean, just right off the bat, talking about how it's deliberate. So that's something where, for our purposes, for our way of life, sometimes, there's only so many things that are deliberate that we do, and we do things that are, deliberate, like for our work maybe, or for like the way that we raise our kids, the way that we, schedule our time. Those things are deliberate, but those are things that we want to do with intention to make sure that we're getting to a purpose. And so, I wonder, and so even for myself, had to think about like how much do I actually deliberately think with intention about helping others follow Christ, or am I just, making time, having coffee, reading a book, but actually like putting thought and forethought and effort into helping people. So I mean, just really trying to take hold of this definition so that we could really make the most of what it means to disciple others and be in each other's lives.
Yeah. So I think one way that I've can get better, I guess, is so when I've thought about discipleship over the years, like every relationship in a sense to me is a discipleship relationship. Like every conversation is at least an opportunity to try to learn myself how to be more like Jesus from whoever I'm talking to, learn something about humans, and how to relate to humans from whoever I'm relating to, or for me to be able to give input and help them be more like Jesus. So that I think that part of discipleship is something that I've just always loved, and been a way that maybe a little bit of a strength, I guess. But on the other hand, I can even remember there was a German who came to live with us for 6 months to be discipled while we were in South Africa, a young guy. And I kind of thought everything, I would take him places, we would do ministry together, we would have these conversations. And so in my mind, I was discipling him. But he was getting frustrated because he's like, when are we going to have our 45-minute sit down, work through a workbook discipleship? Yeah. And I had been giving him other things to do and asking him about those things as we were, but he was just he had this formal definition of discipleship, which I think is sometimes the area where I can be a little weaker, is that both are needed. You need to constantly be interacting with people with the goal of helping them know Christ, but it's also good to have somebody in your life that is actually being a little more like long-term thoughtful, like this is the approach that we're going to take. And God, that's why we have different people in the church. They're going to have different strengths, but at the same time we can all grow in areas that we're weak. So it's part of what I'm seeking to get better at, is thinking through, okay, now what would be we're going to, even family discipleship, sometimes I'm bad about this. We've gone through so many parts of books, or like I start Westminster Catechism. I think we've got through the beginning of that catechism a million different times over 18 years, but maintaining that all the way through
finishing up.
It's been sometimes more difficult because I get interested in the next thing. And so it's good to have deliberate people who are like, you know what, we're going to work our whole way through this, and we're going to get to the end, and yet it's also good to have people who are always pushing you and looking to push you.
Yeah. There was there's a distinction that Deborah made here that discipling isn't so much about following someone's teaching versus following Jesus himself. And we were we were already talking about that earlier, but what'd you think about that statement? Because I feel like it really does get to something that's critical, and it can be missing sometimes when we are just following a teaching or just reading through a book and not really following the person of Jesus. So what were your
Maybe
thoughts
you
on
go
that?
deeper on that.
Yeah, so I think that, when we think about, and I even think about how, like, in prior times, and trying to encourage people to be a part of a small group. I remember someone saying that, isn't small group, or isn't like a transformation group, isn't it just book club? Are we just reading a book together? And yeah, I mean, there's something that we're gonna go through a book. We're gonna go through maybe a systematic theology or biblical theology, or learn what it's like to be a good parent, or what it's like to be a good husband or wife or spouse, and things like that. And yeah, we can go through the teachings of Jesus, but then I think we all can. I think you were describing earlier how we can do that, but then miss the point and miss the person, and that is the whole point. Is so that we can learn these things, so that we can know this person, and interact and relate and really have a relationship, communion with a person. And this is like for another day, but like I was just thinking about too, and how we have relationships with people that you and I, we experience them, with our physical senses, our five senses, how I listen to you, you're you're hearing me, we see each other visually, we ourselves, like are we're sitting in a chair, we can feel it with our physical senses, and that's how we experience, one another. But that it's even more so with Jesus, because I can't know your thoughts. I can't get into your thoughts. You can't get into mine. But like by learning about Jesus and the way that he reveals himself through the Bible, we actually know his mind, and he's resident in us. So it's more than just instruction. Like it's like a just some textbook. And so just making that distinction, like there's more to these things than just information. But that's actually about having a true relationship with a person, in a way that like as you pray, you're talking to Jesus. As you meditate on his word, he's talking to you in a real way, even more real than even as we're talking to ourselves. So just like really leaning into the supernatural aspect of having a relationship with a living God. So
man, that's huge. True. And even as you're kind of coming together, you've got both have the Spirit of God in you, showing you the beauty of Jesus. But also we know that we are means of Jesus. We're means of Jesus communicating grace to other people as we interact with them. So like Jesus is in that moment. That's Ephesians 4, talking about how Jesus is using you to speak and encourage me and show grace to me. And that's even kind of what a spiritual gift is too, isn't it? Like he gives you this gift. Jesus gives you this gift to give to others, to show his grace to others. So it is really personal.
Yeah.
It's not just getting together to talk about a subject. That's kind of we both are interested in.
Yeah. Like, and it's, like I want to learn how to, it's not like I'm learning how to like change the oil in my car or how to make risotto. Like I'm learning something, or like those are like things, but like even for moral improvement, like how to be a better person, like that's a component of it, but that's like really missing the point. And it's almost like the question of, we think about, our end, the telos of life, and, knowing Jesus, right? We want to be like Jesus. And then when that day comes, when we're with Jesus, we will be experiencing him and enjoying him. And it's almost like that's something that we want to look forward to in heaven, having this relationship with this person. But it's almost to the question of, and not to get too on a tangent here, but like sometimes we think about even like heaven itself, and thinking about enjoying heaven without the person of Jesus. Like what kind of heaven is that? But we have these misinformed ideas of what heaven would be like, and being in glory. But then if we think about it, and there's no Jesus, it really isn't heaven. So it's in the same way. It's like if we're thinking about growing and learning as people, if there is no Jesus, there really isn't anything there.
It's really a big point, and it makes this is how conversation. Yeah, it's just like how we get fired up for Jesus. One of the ways is by conversations like this.
Yeah,
it's like a simple means that God has given us to help us enjoy Jesus more.
Yeah.
I was just up in Alaska for this guy's ordination, and we're asking him questions about like justification by faith, or like all these questions, and just listening to his answers. And as he was talking, I was growing in my love for Jesus, and it was pretty worshipful. And I was thinking, man, what if we just had conversations like this more?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a means of like to get us hot.
Right.
It's like, so that's what we're talking about. When we talk about discipleship, we're not just talking about, we want to be really good students who know a lot of information. But this is like a way that God's given us to get our hearts and minds and bodies all stirred up to love him more and to know his love for us more.
Yeah, is it too, like, just even demystify like what this involves, right? Because sometimes people can take it like, okay, if I'm gonna disciple someone, we have to open up the Bible and then chapter verse and like get into the grammar and the Greek and like break it, and which is part of it, right? But like, and that helps us understand like what the Bible is saying. But just like, I think what we're talking about here is you just kind of stir up in one another enthusiasm and enjoyment and thrill of this person. And that mechanically is the way to get there, but just being able to just to respond on the things that we do know.
Right.
That's part of following Jesus together.
He talks in his word to us. That's where we hear him speak.
Yeah.
So we're going to his word together because we want to hear him and see him and love him, not just so that we can beat the other church at Bible trivia or something.
Right. And that sounds fun too. I know that, and people can enjoy that in and of itself. But but to be so deep in the trivia where you miss the person,
right?
It just misses the point. So, so much to say here. I know we're kind of just getting into the
so beautiful thing with discipleship, because if you know Greek words and Hebrew words, and it's motivating you to worship Jesus, and please use that in love people that way. But also, if you don't, like if you're reading John and you're like, man, this is hard, but this is what I saw about Jesus today. He's like, he's God, it's just awesome that he's God and man, and how's he God and man, and that the Lord uses that, or like, I'm so humbled, like I didn't enjoy this about Jesus before, that I'm totally righteous in Christ, and so I've been trying to find my hope too much in my what I do at work or whatever, like things like that. Real life, real people just sharing what they might think seem simple truths from the Bible and the way it's impacted them. Man, that's the kind of stuff that can be of such help to others.
So and I think it actually has lent itself to like, so we're talking about what is discipleship, and then Deborah talks about why, right? And I think there were two motivations that he explained: love and obedience, right? So, like talking through that. So I think the love part, I think that's where we're kind of getting at. Like when we are able to understand who God is, there is going to be enjoyment. Like there is going to be love, and like just as you've been preaching in 2 Corinthians 5, that we're going to want to be ambassadors for Christ if we know how we were revealed the gospel, and that our salvation is not from us but it's from God. So we're going to have that that white hot fire to want to talk about him if we know what he's done in our lives and have appreciated the gospel and the cross, and have that love. But yeah, what else would you say about that?
Just that I think bringing it back, discipleship back to love is really helpful, because some of us are maybe temperamentally our personality. It's easy for us to blame our temperament or our personality when we need to be asking, is it more about the fact that I'm not really loving God or loving other people? And so it's easy to, I know there are people out there that just personality wise, they just get jazzed by being with a lot of people all the time. And then there are other people out there that are kind of like, I just like to be by myself. And the person who always is with other people, he needs to be thinking, is this really love for these people, or is it really love for God that's driving me here? But so does the person who's like, you know what, I just like to be by myself more. Okay, the Lord makes us different, but we need to be challenged too. Like, hey, if you love God, it's gonna come out of your mouth, and you're gonna want to see other people love God. You're gonna want to see other people bless God. That's part of what love for God actually does produce. So if I don't have any of that, I just need to be careful, like that I'm not blaming my personality when I need to be looking more like, am I enjoying how much God's loving me? Am I seeing how great God is? Am I crying out to him that he would produce like a desire to push past with my own gifts, my own ways, my own, life circumstances, the way the Lord, we don't have to be like off the chart extroverts or anything like that. But like if we love God, we're going to want to talk about God, and we're going to want other people to know him and love him too. If you're around a guy and he never talks about his wife, you didn't even barely know he has a wife.
Yeah.
He never thinks about his wife. He doesn't ever text her. She comes up in conversation. It's like he's on to talking about the Lakers in a second. At some point, you're wondering, like, what's the relationship like?
Right.
He's not looking for any. I mean, we all have different personalities, but a guy who never looks for any gap to say something about his relationship with his wife, you just might wonder. And same's true in terms of our relationship with God, and then people. Like, if I love people, I'm gonna want them to know God better. Like, that's the best way to love somebody. And if I don't have any thought of them, at some point I got to be asking, like, hey, where's the love? Because to be a Christian is to love. One of the fruits of a Christian, being a Christian, one of the definite first fruits of being a Christian and true faith is love for other people. The goal of our instruction is love from a pure heart.
Right.
So if that's not showing up in a desire to help them know Christ better, I need to be careful not just to blame my personality. It might look different because of my personality. I get that. But like if I'm not sitting at home thinking, I want to figure this out, how to do this, then I need to go back to love.
Yeah. And sidestep here, because you mentioned personality, because, in our church, we have lots of personalities.
Yes.
We have a lot of people that are outward and, quote unquote extroverts. So, and just because you said the word personality, can you just speak a little bit more about that as far as, because there are people that are not extroverts, and we live in a day and age, like there's this, psycho language that's out there, and that we're defined by different personality traits. Being extrovert, introvert is, one, like separate category. So, like, what would you say to someone that, like, to elaborate more about? It's maybe not my personality to be around people a lot, to show the enthusiasm of wanting to be in someone's, face all the time, talking or being outside with people. I prefer to be home, reading a book, I don't know what that looks like, but just that's my style. That's my personality. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's God made humans different for sure. So it's easy to think that Jesus had our exact personality.
Yeah.
But we don't know. The Bible doesn't really talk in those terms that much, So I came out of the womb hiding behind my mom's legs. I was very fearful of people, and I'm glad. I'm so glad that my parents didn't use that as an excuse to be like, okay, this is just who he is. Certainly I have a certain way, but a lot of that ends up can lean towards sin. My sin, selfishness, can take maybe a temperament and our way and really make it weird. And then we have the excuse like, hey, this is my personality, and we never stop and think like, maybe, yeah, you have a personality, of course, but like maybe what you're talking about here is actually you're selfish, or like you're fearful and you need to trust God, or you just don't like being uncomfortable, and you need to be willing to be uncomfortable for the good of others. And so we're not asking. The Bible certainly doesn't. John, the way he writes his book's different than the way Paul writes this book. So I'm assuming some of that is just the way their minds worked and the way that they were as people. So the Bible doesn't, make us all cross our legs at the same time and just all the exact same, laugh at the same jokes or anything. But it also doesn't spend a lot of time worrying about that. It's more like, hey, do you love your neighbor? Do you love God?
Yeah.
And I think those are the questions that we should more be asking ourselves, is like, hey, is this loving? Is this not loving? Yeah. You think about how your personality might love, but like, let's just be careful. I know that I love to make excuses. So it's easy for me to talk to more, I don't know, even, I don't think in terms of extrovert and introvert, but maybe I don't know what I am, but it's easy for us to talk in that language sometimes. And maybe we should just be like, okay, that's interesting, but like, what does it look like to love God?
Yeah,
And what does it look like to love others?
Yeah, right. And so we're all different people and come from different places, and we have all these different upbringings, and even you can go back generations. Like, my family, my dad, my grandpa, we're all the same way. But at the end of the day, we still have this opportunity, to love people. So even if you are that way, even if you might have more energy, retreating for a bit, being at home, and being recharged that way, there's still a place for those people, for everyone, to find ways, to love people well. And so it might look different, express themselves differently, but we have, the same opportunity and the commands that God has given us,
Yeah, so big example for me, like going into a coffee shop. When I go into a coffee shop, I'm pretty much there to get coffee. And sometimes the barista is super friendly. And my instinct would not be to be like, let's be super friendly back. My instinct is kind of like, thanks for the coffee, I'm sure you don't really care about, how my day is. But you know what? Like, some of that might be temperament, but a lot of it's selfishness. Like, a lot of it's like, for me, I mean, a lot of it's like, hey, man, love this guy in front of you. I need to develop a new way. Like, I can't just be like, well, I just quiet or whatever. Like, no, I need to develop a new way. Here's an opportunity. Here's a human being who's opening up a door to have some sort of interaction. And I'm a representative of Jesus. Like, I need to say no to being selfish in that moment and love the person in front of me. I've been thinking a lot lately about taking the initiative. I'm not like I think by temperament, like it's once I'm in a relationship, let's go for it. Let's talk about Jesus all day long.
Yeah.
But taking that initial step to talk to somebody that I don't know very well or doesn't seem very interested, to break that ice, that's like, can be a big obstacle to me. And I have to think, man, but what would faith in Jesus look like, and what would love look like for me with the way the Lord's wired me? And be very careful, not to say that I have to be a certain way if it's disobedient to Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned being disobedient, because that is also one of the motivations, right? So and we talked a lot about love, but also just the reality that, and I know that it's quick to say, well, we don't want to be legalistic and just obey, and that's why love is part of the equation, right? Because clearly we have this charge, we have this command to obey Christ, and this is how we obey Christ, by making disciples. But that's why the love is so critical, that it's, you know, that it's there, that they're both happening, that we do want to honor the Lord, we want to follow his commands, but that it is in the space of loving, you know, our neighbor well, you know, by making disciples.
Yes. And sometimes faith, I think, looks like doing things that you don't necessarily initially feel like doing, because you trust that Jesus is wiser than you and he's good, and deep down you want what Jesus wants. So discipleship's one of those things. There's times you're going to be out late at night, maybe talking to some guy in a coffee shop, and you're like, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
And that's normal. You don't have to lie about that. But why are you there? You trust Jesus. Like, okay, maybe in this moment, this is where he wants you to be. And you're like, Jesus, this is a sacrifice I make for you, trusting that you know better about what's best for me than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And I even though I don't feel it like amazing right now, like I do want that. I want that more than I want anything else. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely is, you know, an act of faith in all those times, and just really wanting to be led by the Spirit, and trust ourselves in those moments, and trust ourselves to the Lord and to the Spirit in those moments, you know, just to act from love, and be able to take advantage of those opportunities to articulate the gospel, you know, when the appropriate time comes. And so, yeah, we don't know how that looks all the time and when, but that's why it's faith.
Yeah.
We want to put ourselves in a position where we're exercising faith, which seems so easy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but then it wouldn't be faith if
Mm-hmm.
you know, if we had control over it, and we
Mm-hmm.
were the one in command.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking prior to this about the opportunity to influence. So and he describes it, the inevitability of influence. You seem to like that in this chapter. Why did it resonate with you?
Yeah, the first chapter after the introduction he begins just by talking about the fact that we are people who can change. We do change. We don't just can change. We constantly changing, whether we realize it or not. We really, obviously physically, but emotionally, mentally, we're different. And one of the ways that we are changed is through the influence of other people. And we live in this world that's like constantly influencing us in ways that we don't always even realize how much we've been influenced, which can be scary because, like, wow. But it's also exciting because it's like, man, if you look at your life, ordinary people have really shaped your life and who you are and how you think in such profound ways. And so it's just, you're an influencer. Like, I'm an influencer. Yeah. I'm influenced and I'm an influencer. And I think talking about discipleship or thinking about our lives that way is really exciting. Like, God can use you to help somebody be fundamentally different. That's that's good for them, and it brings glory to God. And so that's really, really exciting, and it gives you the opportunity to just like step back and think, well, how am I? If I can do that, because I do that, I see it in my life, the ways I've been influenced by other people. Then, like, how am I pursuing being the best influence that I possibly can be?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, I think that we've heard, you know, people have a gift for like evangelism, for example, or, you know, gifts of being like people, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of puts people into categories where if you're not that, then you don't have that burden, you know? So, but here it's making it plain that, you know, we actually we all have a place to be people and to be influencers or to be evangelists, and that it's just about, you know, recognizing those opportunities and just seeing that there's a whole lot that could be happening in those moments if we entrust ourselves to the Lord.
Yeah.
Just recognizing that the people that we're talking to, that they need something from the Lord. Like that no one's perfect. No one's arrived, and only God is the one who is perfect, who is unchanging, who is immutable. And so there's always something for us to learn from each other and to be pushed, to be nudged a little bit more about enjoying the Lord. So I think, like we talk about how, when we see something that's good or great, like if you see a great movie, like you're really excited to talk about that, and you want to get everyone to go see that movie right away. Or someone, for me, like I had the best tacos the other day. It's in the city of Placentia, and like when anyone talks about tacos, I'm gonna say, hey, go and influence them to go get tacos there, because they're gonna have their best taco there. And so we actually do more influencing than we think already about like very tiny, vain, really immaterial things. But if we think about how much I poured into people talking about the Lakers or the LA Rams, maybe they could be a little bit more better use of that time, influencing them, to enjoy the Lord, maybe.
I like this way of thinking about discipleship, because it really simplifies it. It's like, hey, you want to be a discipler, go as deep as you can with Jesus. Like, pursue him with everything you've got. Not just like try to think the way Jesus wants you to think. Like look at life in a way that's shaped by the gospel. Now go be with people.
Yeah.
Because if that's happening and you actually spend time with people, you are going to influence them. Either they're going to hate you, I would think you're crazy and go a different way.
Yeah. Or
it's just you put a burning coal in the middle of a group of other coals, something's gonna happen. And that's so sometimes
there's something there, if there's heat, right?
Exactly. If there's heat there, you put that guy down there. He as long as he gets time with people, he's going to influence those people. And then it's just think about a church filled with people like that. Again, we've got so much influence from the world. Like it's so hard sometimes. Moving from different cultures makes you realize that. Like living in Africa, living here, seeing like here are two groups of humans who think so differently.
Yeah.
You realize, wow, we're so influenced by our culture, and it's so hard not to just be like everybody out there and think the way they think, because there's so much influence. But what if there's a place that like where people are being shaped by a new way of looking at the world, the gospel, and they're influencing each other, heating each other up that way? Then there's hope to actually be a third culture, like a new culture that actually represents heaven.
Yeah, no, that's where it just shows how it's not just for like super people, like super mature, or these like super soldier Christians, but it really does speak to the fact that like this is just for the mundane, regular people, ordinary people, and how just with the diversity of the church and everything that we're all learning together collectively, how much we're able to push each other forward.
Yes.
And enjoy Christ more that way.
And if you feel like you're different, it may be, I don't know, like in your personality, your background, your education level, or something like that. Just recognize, like, if you pursue Jesus and seek to apply the gospel to your life, God, there's some ways in which you're going to be a super strength to this church. The fact that those differences are not necessarily the weaknesses that you think they are. Because sometimes what can happen is you get a group of people that are so much alike in certain ways, they have less. Yeah, they just, it's harder to spot some of the differences, and maybe the influence is the influence they have on each other is a little different. But like when you got somebody who's like different than you in some ways, but loving Jesus so much, then it's like uncomfortable sometimes a little, but it's also like awesome because like, oh wow, I can think different, and sometimes that enables that person can get to people that nobody else can get to.
Yeah, and it's in diversity, and also and then just also looking from the aspect of just with people's different strengths and their weaknesses.
Totally.
So he has a quote here. It says, you can have gospel influence, and amazingly, making a gospel impact in people's lives doesn't come only through strengths, but only through your weakness. And God does this so that His power would be displayed through our weakness, and He would receive all the glory. So that really does speak to anybody who says, I'm not qualified, or I don't know enough, or I haven't experienced this or that. Like, no, it's actually, it's because you're not qualified. It's because it's, Christ working through your weaknesses, overcoming whatever, struggles or circumstances that you're experiencing, that there's more glory for Christ. And it's at your expense, that you've learned through, but actually, it's through that experience that you're putting Christ on display, and that's really what matters.
Yes.
So because we're not the heroes, right?
That's
like
right.
you often say,
yeah,
right? It's
no,
not
exactly.
us. Yeah.
It's actually allowing our approach to discipleship to be influenced by the gospel more than the world, because like the world, it's got to be your strengths. You got to be the strong, powerful guy. That's how the world works. Like you're trusting in your own righteousness. That's how success works in the world. But like as Christians, we know it's all about Jesus and what the Holy Spirit does through us. So of course the way we approach discipleship is going to look a little different, and we're going to recognize that like weakness is not the hindrance that we're told it is. That actually, and just practically, we know like somebody comes in to your life who's like, man, I failed in this way, but I learned this and I'm trusting Jesus and this is how He's changing me. All of a sudden you're like, what? And you move forward. Or some guy that's like kind of awkward is trusting Jesus and trying to love you, or trying to love another person. You're not like, oh my goodness, this guy's awkward. You're like, that's beautiful. Like that guy is seeking to obey Jesus in spite of whatever it is in his life. It's like, man, what if, or, even sometimes they got this super polished, slick guy talking, and everything he says is just the right thing to say at the right moment. And then you got another guy who's like stumbling over his words, but like the Spirit somehow is like putting Christ on display as he's up there. And it's not that we have to be afraid of trying to do our best, but I think we just have to be careful that it's not because we did our best that God is able to raise a dead person or move somebody forward.
Yeah, really, and it really does speak to, the subversion of what we think is normal and true, because that's really the heart of the gospel. Like everything is turned upside down, And I mean, we say that and it's so cliche. We've been around church long enough, like we accept that, we hear that. But to really lean into that and embrace it, and to seek what is true, from the Word here. So we're at about an hour. It's gone by so fast. I'm sure we haven't covered everything that you wanted to talk about, but I don't know if some last comments before we finish off here. What do you, anything left?
Well, we love you, church.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Jesus loves you. We're thankful that the Spirit of God is in you, and that He's chosen you for this big purpose, really, to know Jesus, to have a relationship with Him, to know His love for you, and to be involved in this great work. Like, that's been going on for thousands of years, and it's going to keep going on until Jesus comes back and we're all glorified and sitting at His feet. And so thanks for spending time with us. And Francis, thank you so much. If anything, hopefully this is just an encouragement, sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. I know my heart is like more stirred and wants to be different and love Jesus more as a result of just this. And so if you listen to this, you're like, wow, that was kind of rambling and talking about this or that. Yeah, that's life. That's conversations. And that's and you can go out and do the same thing.
There you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you, Pastor Josh. Thank you for spending time with me. And yeah, we're going to be going through this book. There's about 10 chapters. So, we just covered chapter 1. And you could see that there's so much more to say and to learn. So thank you, church, for listening in. And we will see you next time.
Yeah, for sure.